Well, here we are today on Camilla and I with my ultimate wildlife camera setup. So we're going to go through what makes this setup so good for wildlife photography. We're going to examine the question, is it worth the money? See what you can do with your own gear to get as near perfection as this ultimate camera gear setup. Well, here on Camilla and I, we like to do things a bit differently. I'm Mark Cooper, if you haven't watched the channel before, and here we do accessible local wildlife photography, but we don't spare any money on the equipment we use. But as we know, it's not all about the gear. It's also technique that counts. It only goes so far owning the best equipment. But as you progress in wildlife photography, you start eyeing up that pro gear, and this is where you see if it's worth it for you. And just as you may never own a Ferrari, a McLaren, an Aston Martin, it's well worth looking at the ultimate sports car, or in this case, the ultimate camera setup, to see what is available. Or maybe you'll just be happy with the equipment you've got. Anyway, this could be the video for you, so watch on. And also, as it's not all about the equipment, at the end of this video, I'll show you a setup which is 1/10 of the price of this one, and you can have just as much fun as we do on Camilla and I with this amount of gear. So it can be motivating and inspiring to see the ultimate equipment that you can acquire for your wildlife photography. Well, if you haven't turned green or gone violently sick and dashed off to the bathroom, watch on and I'll show you what you can get for around £20,000 here in the UK. Well, you certainly don't get this sort of car for £20,000, but let's see what you can get for your money. And what we'll do is break this down into constituent parts, and we'll start with the support. We'll start with the legs. So the first item we want for our ultimate setup is a pair of legs, and these are the Sirui R52-14XL legs, and we normally use the Series 3 for compactness and lightweight when we're traveling around, but the ultimate pair of legs we would use are this pair here, because they are amazing. They fold down to 58 centimeters and they extend to well above our head, and also they collapse to the floor level at 10 centimeters from the floor. So we can have a height from 10 centimeters to the floor to 2 meters in height with these legs. They're made of carbon fiber, so they're lightweight, although these still weigh 2.8 kilograms. They have got 4 sections which come down to make up the total length. Absolutely amazing. And they use these quarter twist locking points. You have a quarter twist locking point which locks off the leg. Superb for in the field use. So we can put a bag hide over the top, and we don't constantly knock ourselves the material on the leg, so we can smoothly deploy the camo. Amazing. We've got a 3/4 inch thread, a 3/8 of an inch thread, a 3/8 of an inch thread. Amazing. Supports any head we care to put on it. I mean, yes, you could have a whole video setup, but this is as big as we can carry. The Sirui 5214 extra large legs, extra long legs. Amazing. And this is our ultimate pair of legs that we want to get into our subject So whatever support you use, we do recommend using a tripod wherever you can on Camilla and I, or some form of support. But of course you can get away with just hand holding. The actual pair we recommend on Camilla and I are these C23204 at the moment, because they're a lightweight, they're in between lengths. This is the Series 3 leg, that's the Series 5 leg, and it's the pair of legs with you that counts. And 2.8 kilograms, I think these are 1.8, I think these are a whole kilogram lighter. So yeah, very good set of sturdy legs, this one alone. But ultimately, if I had a choice, I'd have that pair in situ. Whatever support you use, just make sure the best shots are taken with support. So we got our pair of legs, our ultimate pair of legs. Now we need something to swing and position the camera into play. And for that, if you're supporting heavy wildlife gear, you need one of these, a gimbal head. Here we have the PH-30 Sirui gimbal head, and it's an amazing piece of kit. So the gimbal head just swivels into position on top of the legs, like so. And then we tighten it off using an Allen key, which comes with the Sirui 5 series legs. You've got this little screw here, and you can tighten off the locking screw underneath the legs. Absolutely superb. And that just locks the gimbal head into place. And again, of course, the gimbal head is complete luxury, but very useful for supporting the heavy gear we do on Camilla and I. So yet again on Camilla and I, we could make do with a lesser gimbal. The PH-20 gimbal is at least £100 cheaper and supports 20 kilograms of camera equipment, plenty enough for most wildlife photographers. But this one, well, it's an absolute thing of beauty. I mean, look at that. It's worth paying the extra £100 for the design of that alone. But also it does support 30 kilograms of weight of camera gear. So it is superb. We have a full 180-degree rotation, of course, with this, so we can turn back on ourselves with the equipment. Also, we have a 30 to 150 degree sweep, which we can articulate right to the sky. Obviously the camera hits there, so we can't go that high. So it's there to about there. Amazing degree of angular control. Anything reasonably within our eye line is going to be captured in this beautiful piece of metal and machinery. Lovely bearings in here, give it ultra smooth, steady progress around. And again, this then completes our ultimate setup for support. And support is absolutely crucial. If we're going to be out all day in the field, yes, you can hand hold, and indeed it's better to get photographs of birds in flight handheld. But I tell you, try doing that all day long with 4 kilograms of camera equipment pointed at the sky. Oh, well, all I can say is keep up your gym membership, because you'll need it. With this system, you can be in position and ready for that shot all day long. So we've got the gear, we've got the support. What are we going to place on it? Well, I don't think there'll be any guesses from the audience of Camilla and I as to what camera and lens combination we will place on this support. Let's just go and get it a minute. Yep, no surprises for guessing on Camilla and I. Or must remember to tighten off the things, otherwise you're sliding everywhere. No surprises for guessing. We've got a preset position of 3 on this. We know it's going to come in at 3 for balance. And it's most important to balance this off on this setup so that you're perfectly balanced and you can maneuver in any particular motion with this setup. Absolutely superb. So literally we just turn on and we've got ultimate flexibility and motion in a 4 kilogram setup. We've even got the battery grip on the Sony A1. So I suppose I better go over, just for those who don't watch Camilla and I, why we use the Sony A1. Just a brief quick rundown of the specs, because I have done other videos, but the A1 is our ultimate wildlife camera at the moment. Canon and Nikon do Z9, etc. Canon R3, I think. Anyway, superb cameras, very similar, but this is my ultimate camera, a Sony A1 at the moment. Maybe replaced by the A9 III for sheer speed, but we'll see. At the moment we get 50 megapixel quality out of this sensor, which is absolutely phenomenal compared to our previous A9 II with 25 million pixels. So we can really crop using the Sony A1, and let's face it, we need it. Let's have a look at a Merlin shot taken here, without crop, with crop. Sometimes you need to crop, and if you need to crop in wildlife, you need 50 megapixels. Then also with the A1, we've got the burst speed of 30 frames per second, which, let's face it, who doesn't want 30 frames per second? Some of us want 120 frames per second, but that is really greedy. Anyway, another video coming. But 30 frames per second, unbelievable. Catch most wing beats as subject flies across the screen, no problem at all. So the A1, yeah, frames per second, 50 megapixels, unbelievable. Also the autofocus on the Sony A1, absolutely to die for. Anything that comes into frame. We're on zone focus at the moment for anything in flight. Instantly to press the button, we're in focus on that subject. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And the low light capabilities of the A1 are just as good as our old A9 series. So yeah, we've got the ultimate camera. And then of course we've got my favourite wildlife lens, which is the 600mm Sony f4 600mm. It's also obviously the most expensive lens they do, and of course, like the McLaren, like the Ferrari, like the Lamborghini, you get what you pay for. And we're going for a very shallow depth of field on Camilla and I. We're trying to isolate our subject. That's why, like this brown hair in the field, we were able to isolate our subject using the 600mm f4. Both the foreground and the background thrown out of focus. Unbelievable. We're trying to get this gear into within 6 meters to 20 meters of our subject, ideally. Absolutely unbelievable. And then the quality we will get from this setup is unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable. I've showed you quite a few examples on Camilla and I already. But yeah, just throw up a few more examples. And yeah, so this is my ultimate wildlife setup on Camilla and I. And of course, not everybody can afford the ultimate wildlife setup. And indeed, you can't always get the ultimate wildlife setup into play. And that's where cheaper equipment can come into use. This can be totally impractical to cart around a field. Quick, give me a quick demonstration. Oh, yeah, I'm off. I won't be long. I'll be back in a minute. Oh, yep, you're not going to get too far. I mean, people do. I mean, you see people walking along like this all day long with very clever things strapped to their back. But really, it's not practical to carry this around all day. So do not despair if you haven't got £20,000 of equipment. Yes, this is the ultimate setup that on Camilla and I, we, you know, at the moment, it's the gear to aspire to, but hopefully it will come down even cheaper. And it's like everything in life. You know, if you're driving a Ferrari, then you pay the money for a Ferrari. And of course you get the results of a Ferrari. You get 0 to 60 in 4 or 5 seconds, don't know. You know, you get 30 frames per second. You get ultra fast autofocus. This is why we pay the big bucks. But if you haven't got the big bucks, as I promised you earlier, I'll show you a system now which we've been using all the time for the last month, tracking deer. And I think we know what kit that is as well. So for 1/10 of the price of this bag boy here, for around the £2,000 mark, you can pick up the flagship APS-C Sony camera at the moment. It's not full frame. It's going to be nowhere near as good as the individual quality of those pictures. But this camera, unbelievably, has some features that hasn't. For example, bracketing. You can bracket in camera, so you can focus stack with this camera. You can't do that with that one at the moment. Autofocus in video. You can do that with this unbelievably small package. No problem. You can't do it with that. That is the ultimate setup, but you can't get it into position. I couldn't walk around the entire forest with that. No problem at all. I couldn't tow it with the Camilla wagon because there are branches and water everywhere in the forest, so impossible. So this was the setup of choice. Yeah, 11 frames per second, 30 frames per second. Yeah, you're going to be limited, but we still got lovely results with this combination. And I'll tell you what, we had just as much fun with this combination as we did with that combination, if not more, because we didn't get the backache or the headache of carrying that lot of gear around. But that is the ultimate setup for Camilla and I's wildlife photography. If we can get that within 6 to 20 meters of our subject, oh, we're in heaven. So whatever you're shooting, whether it's a Lamborghini or a Mini, it really doesn't matter. It's getting out there in wildlife that counts, and it's the camera you have with you that counts. Have a good one. Bye from Camilla and I. Oh shit. Okay. You want to hear that? All right.
Harrier?
Yeah, if he's around, yeah.
Well, he is around. He's around here sometimes.